All right, so speaking of Captain America, I actually wanted to quickly go over like one of my earlier videos I had done, and the first time I actually met you was actually through Captain America. Go figure. So I was over in East Orlando area at this place called Cartoon Museum. You had to remind me of the name because I'd forgotten it had been so long, and it's a real interesting place. I made a video about it a long time ago, but long story short, my buddy and I had done our shopping already. We were getting ready to leave. I don't remember, the phone rang or something. He knew you were coming, and he's like, "Hey guys,
Hmm.
hold on just a minute. John Beatty's gonna be coming down here, and maybe he'll sign something while he's down here for I don't know." And so I was like, "Okay, great. We'll hang around like an hour or something." What a terrible way to spend an hour, right, in a comic book store. But we'd already bought our stuff. We'd spent our money already, so we didn't have
Right.
anything else. So he went out and pulled an issue each that you'd worked on and gave them to us free of charge. Here you go. If you'll sign them, great. So this is the one he actually gave to us. 289
Oh
here,
yeah.
breaking the fourth
Yep.
wall, like seriously. Um,
And that's assistant editor month, and that's us in the.
yep, in the window down there.
Yep.
But just it's this really funny issue, and it's got you sign inside on the splash page or whatever. But
Hmm.
so it's just a great little story. That's how I first met you, is through Captain America. So maybe it was a good thing, a good move. I don't know.
Yeah. Hey.
But in leading into that, as you mentioned editors earlier, now you've worked with some of the most famous, revered editors of the time, like Jim Shooter, Dom DeValco, and
Hmm.
all that. So, what was the difference in their styles of leadership, and was there one of those editors that you worked particularly best under who fostered the best environment for you, or was it just kind of, it doesn't matter either way, I'm just punching the clock?
Um, it's a really good question there. There's always going to be editors that you kind of click with, I think. Uh, you know, I worked under Mark Gruenwald, who was himself also, Mike Zeck, Mark Gruenwald, myself, we were all big Cap fans, and we wound up working on the book,
I
and I
love I
believe,
love Grunwald's run on Cap, like the Cap Wolf series and the Streets of Poison and all
yeah,
that stuff. He had some amazing like story arcs and stuff. I love Grunwald.
and so during his time too, Mike Carlin was his assistant editor, and Mike Carlin and I think Mike might be a year or two older than me, but you know, uh, we kind of, became buddies in a sense. And I still consider, him a friend of mine today, even though the last time I saw him was at Terrificon in Connecticut about 3 years ago, 4 years ago. He moved out to California, but Carlin's a great guy. I mean, I really enjoy him. He's got a great sense of humor. Um, he was a good editor to work for. He protected his people from, the higher ups when they wanted to, you know, I mean, you know, he would stand up if you were in the right against the company.
Got to fend off the
A lot of
suits.
editors.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, a lot of editors don't want to do that because it's, they're risking their
Hmm.
job. But, he's one that I remember that would, you know, if you were, if you had done nothing wrong, he wasn't going to let, somebody pin something on you that maybe, you know, gossip or backstabbing or something had got your reputation, thrown around the wrong way. Um, and so there are some politic type things in comics that, go on behind the scenes that you may not even be aware of until later in your career. Like, I mean, it could be something simple or it could be something that somebody said about you that's totally false, but, they're saving their own
Yep.
skin. So they're going to throw you under the bus. And, it's good to have somebody that you can depend on to be there for you when you're not, to defend yourself, and or even if you are defending yourself, the person just doesn't want to give you the benefit of the doubt because of who knows why. Maybe they have another reason. I mean, that's the bad side of comics. Yeah, it happens. I'm sure it still happens. Like I said, I've heard of people being promised work and then it never pans out, which is sad because some people will hang their hat on getting that assignment and they're promised something and then at the 11th hour, it's pulled, and somebody may turn work down because something is coming in, and then they're left holding no bag because they turned something else down. So it's bad when that happens.
I remember watching it was some TV show, and they were talking about putting a scientist on trial, and it was funny. Like the district attorney's like, well, these scientists don't care about awards or money or conquest or power. They care about reputation, and once that's sullied, you're ruined forever. So I can imagine it'd be really easy to have your reputation tarnished, and then it's kind of hard to find work in such an enclosed system, right? I mean, I would think that it would be difficult.
Yeah. It's the nature of the beast. I think it goes for probably almost any industry, that if somebody, like you said, sullies your name somehow and it gets around and people begin to believe it, and that's, suddenly, you're not getting calls, you're not getting work, and you're basically, what did I do?
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually, maybe somewhere down the line you hear from somebody like 3 or 4 times removed, hey, I heard you did this, is that true? And that's when the shocking reality is like, what? And it's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I wasn't in that conversation. I never did that. I don't know the people you're talking about, that type of thing.
So that kind of leads me to another question, and I'm not looking for names here at all. I don't want to care about scuttlebutt or any kind of,
right.
drama. But was there any artists or pencilers, anything, or editors you just couldn't work with? Like either they kept sending your stuff back, it wasn't good enough, or it just didn't fit your style, or the personalities were clashing. Did you ever have that issue at all when in your time in the biz?
Yes. There were a couple of pencilers that were divas, for lack of a better term.
We're all human.
And, no matter what I did, I couldn't please them. One of them, it got nipped in the bud early into the work, before there was a lot completed.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to just go, you know what, I don't want to do this. And I just, I went to the editor and I just told him, hey, sorry to do this to you, but it's not working out. It's going to be a headache for all involved. I'm out, and luckily it was only a 1-issue thing. So it wouldn't have been like a multi book project or anything.
Yeah.
And so it was easy to migrate, to try to get the penciler somebody he felt would work better with him, and to, put me on something that I felt more comfortable, or that the penciler could appreciate, what I do more. So, I mean, that type of stuff happens. And that's why, whenever you put a penciler inker team together, it usually takes a few issues of working together to find that groove, to begin to work together on a level that, as an inker, you kind of know what they expect, and as a penciler, they kind of know what they're going to get in return. So, it's a bit of give and take on everybody's part, really.
Yeah, luckily it was only like a 1-issue deal. That would suck. It's like, we're going to give you 50 issues of Moon Knight or something, and all of a sudden you find out you can't work with this guy at all. So there goes my security for the next 3-4 years.
Well, truthfully, the penciler wrote me a letter, and I got that, and I was just like, I was reading it, and I was just like, all right, this is not going to work out. It wasn't that my ego was that big. It was just that the stuff he was describing, I couldn't visualize in my head. So
you're not on my wavelength, are you, son?
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at the pencils going, what is he seeing in his own work that I'm missing? And I couldn't get it, so I'm just like, he's got his expectation here, but I see this. So I don't know what he's seeing, I couldn't find that midpoint to where it would work. So it was just best for me to call the editor. And actually the editor, it was kind of funny. He said, do you want me to get him on the phone too so you all can discuss this? And I said, that'd be great. So the editor heard a very interesting discussion.
It sucks to be a mediator sometimes, doesn't it? But at least you got out in the
Well,
open, right?
I don't even know if he was a mediator. I think I pretty much took the conversation over and kind of.
Well, I mean,
took the bull by the horn.
I mean, the ball's pretty much in your court at that point. It's like, I'm just not going to work on it. So I mean,
Yeah,
what else do you want from me? But, next work. Give me my next piece.
I think the editor was kind of relieved that I did that.
Mm-hmm.
That he didn't have to, kind of take sides. That I was kind of at a point where I really didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it took a lot of stress away from him, to tell the truth.
Well, you gotta love it when a plan comes together, right? So,
oh yeah.
So that kind of leads me into another question: is was there any books, covers, whatever, any pieces of art that you think were pretty substandard or rough that you think that your inking actually saved? Do you think, it's hard, it's kind of hard to quantify that, but I mean, is there a book that you think just came out so much better after you got done with it over the original pencils after your inking, and kind of following that, how important do you think good inking really is to a comic book?
Well, here's the deal. Most of the time, and we're talking about, not current stuff, because like I said, if you or anybody sees the pencils to books that are coming out now, those pencils are, like I said, they're so tight that anybody that has control over a pen nib or a brush or whatever, they can, if they have the patience and stuff, they can pretty much ink this stuff on a good level, maybe not professional level, but they can do a lot better than some of the pencil work that I've worked on. The new stuff is just incredibly tight. Google it, you'll find some pencils, and it's just like, wow. That's why I think even to this day, inkers don't get the credit that they deserve, because they see that these pencils, these newer pencils, are so tight, they really don't understand what an inker does. Now, having said that, do I feel like I've improved something? Yes and no. I mean, it's give and take. There's certain things that I will do to pencils that I think enhance them, but I stop short of like really redrawing a lot of stuff. I feel that if a penciler does something to the best of their ability and an editor accepts it, and I've been given it as finished pencils, I think it's my job to enhance it and to not make it worse, but to at least retain what's there. So I don't feel it's my job to redraw anything that's not necessary. Now I will, when I'm working on stuff, I'll scan pages, visually scan, like let's just say I'm working on Batman. If they start drawing Batman with the yellow circle or oval on his chest, I just make sure it's there on the, subsequent pages and panels, because that's a little detail that sometimes a penciler will leave out. And there's nothing wrong with me putting that in, but I'm not going to sit there and like totally redraw an arm that an editor has
already passed.
Yeah, I mean, that's their job to catch anything that they think is bad. Now, having said that, I will qualify it with if it's something I can help out without really changing a lot, then yeah, I will try to, like I said, not really overpower it, but maybe make it a little more legible, a little more visually comforting, to look at. So, I never felt it was my job to redraw pencils. I always felt it was my job to retain what I was given and enhance them, to bring my voice to the artwork as well.
It's probably a pretty dangerous trap to get into too, because like you start interpreting what the penciler was thinking originally. It's like, no, I'm going to make this look better, and then you start taking over a book yourself and causing more work for yourself at the same time. So there's probably like no time for that sort of thing. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting quagmire you could get into really easily there.
Oh yeah, no, you can go down that rabbit hole and get trapped, and then you're either you're going to piss someone off. It's either going to be the penciler, the editor. They're going to be like, "Why did you do this? This is not what you're hired to do." So, I mean, small changes, fine. Like I said, if they're missing a finger and you add it, no problem.
I don't know if it's art, but I like it.
But and if an editor would specifically call something out to me, like, hey, could you, didn't have character reference or something, can you like, his mask is changed now or something, or the hairstyle is different on this character now, could you make that correction? Okay, that's an editor allowing me and giving me permission to go ahead and do that. And then if the penciler complains, then the editor, of course, is supposed to go, oh,
I'll field this one. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's part of what they're supposed to do, but if I just like go off on these weird, things and go like, I'm changing stuff because I've got the brush and the pen and the ink and that's what's going to be printed, then no, it doesn't work for me that way.
So you were working really at the very cusp in the explosion. The comics boom just kind of happened during your tenure, and it went absolutely ballistic. Did you foresee the problems that would arise from that? Did you see the writing on the wall with the big crash, or was you just too giddy with all the work to pay it much mind?
Well, that was the 90s. The 80s was a great decade to work in comics. That's the that's the Bronze Age, as they call it now. And to me, the 80s was maybe, for American comics, the last great decade of, and some people, they'll argue with it, but there was so much creativity and experimentation in a good way, unlike today, in the 80s with comic books. There were a lot of new creative people coming in the business with fresh ideas and how to handle characters and still retain the integrity of the characters without, totally making them somebody different than what had been established 30, 40 years before. I mean, there's There's a way to handle a character and make a change and do it right, and then there's a way to do it wrong, which I think we've seen way too often in the past, decade, 15 years. So for me, seeing what happened in the 90s, when the industry just kind of bottomed out because of the false, they weren't even readers. It was more of like an investment,
the age of the speculator.
Like people,
yeah.
And truthfully, I'm not sure that anybody really saw it coming until, I mean, I'm sure some people did, but really I didn't see it happening until it did. And when it happened, it seemed to happen like really quick. It didn't seem like a slow death. I mean, you went from, what was there at one point, 600, 700, 800 titles a month. I mean, they were just putting books out.
Insane. Every tertiary character had their own run. It was
right, and everything had a new number one, and multiple covers. We're seeing it again. All the variant covers. I mean, there can be 50, 60, 100 variant covers on books, and I've heard the complaints, and I'm like, I'm not involved in that. It's like I see it happening too. It's like there's nothing I can do about it. It's like, just like before, I was just, I was doing my job. Now I will say, in the 90s, when there was that glut of comics, I was offered a lot more work than I ever did, but I was never comfortable just trying to do as much work as I could and just to make more money. I always tried to keep my work at a certain level of quality and concentrate on that rather than just taking every job that was offered me just to make more money.
Coffers, yeah.
Right. And I during that period, if I could have inked 3 books, I could have had 3 books. I could have had as much work as I wanted. I was constantly getting calls from editors. Hey, got something I want to offer you. And this was like crazy times because, before it became Image, they called it the West Coast style, with all the cross hatching and stuff. And that's how a lot of people suddenly, that's the way the art was, on almost every book, not on my books. I didn't ink that way, and I didn't plan on changing. There were a couple of times when an editor would call and say, hey, we've got some new guy, and we're wondering if you're interested in inking, this book or this title or whatever. And usually my first question is, well, is it that West Coast style that seems to be popular? And they're like, well, yeah, he kind of draws like that, And I said, well, that's really not what I do. And they're like, well, yeah, but you can just follow the pencils, So, I mean, really, if, like I said, if I had wanted to, I could have just, made a check. But I would not have, felt good about the work I was doing. And I had always made that, kind of my benchmark, was to do the best I could and to be proud of the work I put out. And I think I accomplished that on a certain level. My bank account shows that I did. So
integrity
yeah,
does pay.
I mean, yeah, well, or doesn't pay, depending on how you look at it. Like I said, if I would have, if I would have been just cranking out books to make checks back in the 90s, I probably You know, yeah, I would be a lot wealthier.
I don't think
I'm wealthy now only with the integrity of the work that I have out that, you know, people still enjoy and migrate to.
I mean, you're still remembered, and I'm sure a lot of the
Right.
luminaries from that time are his footnotes now. So, but
Oh yeah, there's a lot. Well, that's the sad part about that time is they needed warm bodies, just, you know, just to do the amount of work that was coming out. And when the whole thing collapsed on itself, those people that were maybe only in the business for less than a year, you know, they were the first to go because they shouldn't have been in to begin with. You know, they didn't have the chops, but they were filling pages. You
people
know,
cannot comprehend the amount of books that were being moved back then. It just
it was insane.
Nowadays they're happy to get 50,000. That would have got you canceled back then because they were moving so much copy. It was crazy.
Yeah, no, like I said, you know, I saw a lot of people that, you know, it's one of those things that it's sad in many ways because I think about myself. What if that had happened to me? What if I would have got in and thought I was living this dream that I wanted so bad since I was a kid? You know, I always wanted to be a cartoonist. I wanted to draw comics. I wanted to do a comic strip originally, you know, and what if I would have got in just to like, you know, 6 months, 8 months, a year later to just be like, sorry, we got nothing for you, you know? And it's like, yeah, but I've done all this and I've been loyal and I've turned in 3 books a month for, you know, the past, I haven't had sleep. I haven't had, which I didn't, you know, I mean, I put in long hours and, you know, days at a time to meet deadlines and everything. But, you know, I was, you know, I don't know if I'd call it one of the lucky ones or what, but maybe it was that there was value, hopefully, to my work, and that's why it's, you know, still looked at in a good light, as opposed to, as we just mentioned, some people, you know, don't know what happened to them. You know, they were just like a quick, you know, and then they're gone. I mean, they produced maybe 6 or 8 books, and then when the industry went bust, they were the first to go. So I'm just glad that I always kept my eye on what I felt was important.